When John Henry
was a little bitty baby, sitting on his daddy's knee, he picked up a hammer
and a little piece of steel
and said,
Goo Goo, Gaga, E.
"That's not right."
Well, I'm only 6 months old. What do you expect?
Expect you to get on board.
Yeah, get on board. Yeah, get on track. 'Cause we're all waiting to hear about the honorary, the legendary
John Henry.
Okay. Ready to roll down the rock, down the rock, down the rock, down
Ready to roll down the rock, down the rock, down the rock.
Ready to roll down the rock, 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 down the Rock and Rock Island line. That's still not right. Weren't no Rock and Rock Island line at that time. Hey, is this your story or ours? It's ours, so let's hit it. When John Henry was a little baby, sitting on his daddy's knee, his daddy picked him up
Threw him on the floor.
and said,
Aw, this baby's done wet on me.
"Lord, Lord, the baby's done wet on him." But John Henry, he picked up that hammer
And a little piece of steel and said,
This hammer will be the death of me.
Yeah, he really say, "This hammer will be the death of me." Lord, Lord.
This is the way it all happened.
The Civil War had been fought,
The slaves had been set free,
and the country was spreading out from the Atlantic,
reaching over the Rocky Mountains and the rolling plains to the wide Pacific shore. But back to our hero, the night John Henry was born. The moon stood still,
then it went backward.
all the time growing bigger and redder and redder and bigger.
The stars stood still too.
and I suppose they went backward too.
Yeah, and they got bigger and wider and wider and bigger. The wind came up, and the wind began to howl, and it howled.
The trees bent to the left,
And they bent to the right, and they swayed in the wind.
And the river, the great wide river,
The life-giving artery of the nation
stopped.
the night was as black as the inside of a coal mine.
And the wind and the river had a strange,
Unreal power. Something was new in the world.
Something different. Something mighty powerful. It was.
The moon floated above, touching the silent prairie with silver.
The air was still.
Everything was still.
It was a silent time.
A lonesome time.
John Henry was born that night, and strange it was too.
For John Henry was born.
Yes, Lord!
John Henry was born.
With a hammer in his hand.
Here a hammer, there a hammer,
Everywhere, hammer, hammer.
Yes, Lord, with a hammer in his hand. But quick as a firefly flickering across the river, the moon became the same old moon again,
The stars stopped.
and once more looked like the same old stars, dancing and twinkling like golden freckles high up in the sky.
And the river flowed to the sea again.
And John Henry's mammy in the little cabin.
Deep in the heart of the land.
On the shore of the muddy Mississippi that gave life to a whole nation, looked down at him with wonder and pride. This sure be the purtiest baby in the world, but what he doing with a hammer in his hand? Hammer in his hand, hammer in his hand, what he doing with a hammer in his hand?
So when he was just a little type, he'd go around hammering things.
Hammer on the chairs.
Whop,
Hammer on the table.
whop, whop,
I used to get a licking all the time.
hammer, hammer, whop, hammer, hammer, whop, hammer, hammer, whop, 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 whoop. Yet as John Henry grew, he grew in size.
And he grew in stature. And he grew in his mind.
His horizons grew. He started to go out,
Got a bigger hammer.
Started walking around town hammering things.
Hammering trees.
People, fences.
Fire hydrants.
whop, 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 whop.
Why, John Henry would just go around hitting one fire hydrant after another with one big whop.
And all the dogs in town
Hated John Henry, 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 hated John Henry. Well, the whole story says that when he grew to be full to full size,
like me.
He could drive steel on the railroad.
drove those spikes in the ground faster than any 10 men. People started talking about John Henry.
Oh,
He was the fastest man ever go stealing on the railroad. And the whole story of John Henry really started on the day the captain told John Henry something.
Something.
John Henry said,
Tell me something, Captain.
and the captain, he said,
John Henry, I'm going to build me a steam drill round. I'm going to bring me a steam drill on the job. I'm going to whop that steel on down.
Whoa.
Whop that steel on down.
Sure enough, the next day they had a steam drill out on that job. Big red steam drill, shiny smokestack glistening in the sun. Well, there stood old John Henry over there, muscles rippling in the sun, sweat running off in gimlets. The captain looked over at that steam drill and smiled.
Then he turned over and looked at John Henry with his beady little eyes.
And he snarled at John Henry.
Hi there, John.
But John didn't say nothing. He just spit on his hands. Picked up those 2 9-pound hammers
Walked over slowly toward that steam drill.
and on the steam drill.
He went over and on the captain.
Yeah, he spit on the captain too.
Well, it got to be about 12 o'clock.
I knew.
Start time for the race.
Every railroad man in the country was there that day.
Because they knew if John Henry lost that race, they was all out of a job.
John was up there at the starting line. That steam drill was up there at the starting line. Big smokestack sticking right up in the air.
Well, this spit on it.
The captain walked up to the starting line, and I swear you could hear a pin drop that day.
He took out his pistol and pointed up in the air.
And John Henry?
Thanks to John Henry, this is about the greatest race in the history of man.
Race between a man and a machine. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. Boom, boom.
I.
Boom, boom. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. Na, 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 I'm going off the rails on the crazy train. There!
That started the race.
Well, the steam drill was going on the left side, and John Henry hammered on the right. The steam drill made 10 feet, John Henry only 3. At the end of the first hour, the steam drill was forging ahead. For every boom boom, there was a chug chug chug. At the end of the second hour, the boom chug boom chug boom chug sounded like a hurricane. For every boom boom, came 3 chug 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 boom boom chug 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 boom boom chug 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 boom chug boom chug boom chug.
Hour after hour, the fight went on.
First, the steam drill was ahead, then John Henry, then the steam drill. The giant machine roared and swayed on its foundation. It devoured tons of coal and barrels of water.
The smooth and even rhythm of John Henry's 20-pound hammer
Rang out above the violence of the machine. But it hammered John Henry out of sight. Lord, Lord, hammered John Henry right out of sight. But John kept swinging. The steam drill had 6 inches to go. John Henry had a foot. 2 inches.
1 inch.
Oh, Lordy. Yeah, that's right. John Henry lost that race.
Dumb smart aleck.
Thought he could beat a steam drill.
John Henry said to the captain.
Captain, good Lord, I ain't no fool, for I die with a hammer in my hand. I'm gonna get me a steam drill too.
Get me a steam drill too. Lord, Lord, get me a steam drill too. Get me a steam drill too. Lord, Lord, get me a steam drill too.
Like a shaking tornado.
The crowd rushed forward to shake their hero's hand.
But they stopped.
Suddenly,
Stunned.
Beside his hammer lay John Henry, gasping for breath.
with his last powerful stroke,
His great heart had burst within.
His eyes were closed.
Life had vanished from those rippling muscles.
John Henry was dead.
Dead, with a hammer in his hand. They say that John Henry's mighty spirit still moves along the railroad tracks in the land of his birth.
it breathes through tunnels and whispers in mountain passes.
They say that it's a kindly, helpful spirit.
A determined one. And strong.
For it's the spirit as strong as the man with the